I bet I drill a clean hole in somebody today.
Today we're going to be talking about a tweet that occurred at the very beginning of the year. I wasn't able to get around to it because I was experiencing my own troubles at the time, and then Tekken 8 released soon after, so I'm doubling back. We're going to be talking about Julia Chang and just Harada's ideas about having a Native American character in Tekken. Is that something players want? Me personally, I'll say it at the start, I'll be honest. I'm not really a fan of Julia Chang or Michelle Chang. The only one that I think is the cool character, is the best character that should return if they decide to do one, is JC. JC, the female version of Julia, I think there's hope within that character. Let's look at Harada's tweet. It starts off with a conversation that was revolving around Leroy Smith. There's a lot of stuff about Eddie. We're going to skip past all of that because we already discussed this, but someone responds to it and says, "A Native American, I really appreciate being able to grow up playing characters like Julia." Or Nightwolf. Harada says, "I would like to hear from Native Americans in the Tekken community regarding the design of Julia and Michelle Chang." For those of you who don't know anything about these characters, I'll give you a quick summary. Michelle, her introduction into Tekken is quite simple. She had a pendant that had something to do with Ogre, the god of fighting. This character went on to cause massive destruction across Tekken, sent Jin Kazama on his way, took Jin Kazama away from him. Ogre's very important. Michelle Chang's pendant was very important in the awakening of Ogre, and ever since I believe Heihachi took the pendant from her, she disappeared. Julia shows up later after her mother disappears, Michelle, and then she is looking for the pendant, two, her mother. And the reason why I say that Julia isn't really that, I'm not really interested in her, is because at the start, she was looking for answers. She was looking for the truth. But you fast forward to Tekken 7, she's a streamer now. She's trying to plant trees in a desert. She, as a character, lost sight of her own journey, and that, in my opinion, it just shows that the character lacks focus. But let's keep reading. He says, "I have worked on many character ideas for many games. It is especially important to note Tekken and Soul Calibur were born in the 90s and were originally arcade games. Arcade games require you to insert a coin and move on to gameplay within seconds. Fighting games in particular needed to convey the character's personality and charm within a limited amount of time. This is a big difference from designing game characters around narratives. Games where narratives are important can take their time and show the character's identity and story, but this approach cannot be used for arcade games." The same is true for Julia and Michelle. "We wanted to reflect their Native American heritage in their character design, so we took their inspiration from the Native American tradition of war and added feathers, accents to their heads, especially in the 1990s when the numbers of polygons was still too small to be expressive. It was important to express the individuality through this one-pointed design. However, over time around Tekken 6 to Tag 2, we received a point of view from fans who called herself a Native American. To summarize the point made by the person, he or she said, 'I think the feather Julia wears on her head is not a good design because it promotes stereotypes. Modern Native Americans are more normal and fashionable.' In addition, he/her added that, 'These are fashions of modern Native American students that I have photographed on my campus,' and showed me many pictures. And then that person said, 'You see, no one is wearing stereotypical Native American fashions. In those pictures, many people were wearing t-shirts and common tops and jeans in summer fashion.'" Now, I want to stop there and talk about this. This is the difficult thing about fighting games. When you reach into a region of the world and you want to cover a different heritage or culture or something like that, you can get into a lot of trouble. The term is cultural appropriation. I'm sure we're all very familiar with that. Fighting games have to be very careful to not come off as a stereotype and more so come off as celebratory. We're celebrating your heritage, your country, your region, your culture, and it's a very thin line. But see, here's the flip side of it. The difficult thing is now people want representation. You can't be stereotypical, but then you also have to incorporate people's culture. Let's keep reading. "Certainly, his/her point is true as a fact of the real world. But on the other hand, suppose I were to design a new Native American character, one that is more averse than necessary to be evaluated as a stereotype, or that avoids such a stereotype. In this case, for example, I might design a simple, common, safe, and controversy-free design of a monochromatic t-shirt and jeans. But then perhaps, just by looking at the game screen or the character select screen, this is a Native American character would not be understandable. The goals of conveying the character's personality, charm, and identity in a limited amount of time will probably not be achieved. That's the thing, right? You want to get across like this is a Native American character, but then when you do that, people will be like, that's offensive. Stuck in between a rock and a hard place. This is what a lot of game developers, designers, movie producers, this is what a lot of people are kind of stuck in between. So think about it this way, right? You have many characters on the roster. And if you have all of those characters wearing just normal clothes, not representing their culture, their region, their world, then it's just going to look like a bunch of people with different like normal clothes on. Like, what do you guys all shop at the same store? You have to convey a difference in like sides, people, cultures. You have to, because it's a full roster, and when people are trying to select a character that maybe they like, maybe resembles them, maybe they just think it's cool, you got to give that variety. I was a little distressed after this was pointed out to me. Perhaps King will one day be pointed out by Mexicans as an obvious stereotype. The design that a Mexican equals pro wrestler is unacceptable. Or one day the criticism may come, Paul is wearing Japanese judo suit. This is cultural appropriation. We do a lot of research and study when designing characters. We do not just read books or research the internet, but we also invite actual people from the country as designers, and sometimes we work with embassies of various countries to learn more from the people in the country or ethnic community. And we also solicit their opinions. Example, in the past we were designing characters for Shahid. We used past reflections and not only worked with embassies, but also had Saudi students participate in supervising the character's design. Furthermore, even before we announced the new character, we published the designs in rough sketches on Facebook to get a lot of feedback to help us revise them. So should we use this approach for all of our characters? If we do this, we lose the fun of what kind of characters we will get, and our ideas and creative power will not be utilized. In fact, I had a stock idea for Native American characters other than Julia Michelle, but these ideas have not yet been realized since the aforementioned point I made. Again, I would like to ask the question, the Native American community, do you have any concerns with Julia or Michelle as pointed out in terms of design? 2. Also, Julia and Michelle are already well-known characters, so I think the fans will understand the identity of the characters even if we dare to make them in an impersonal fashion. But if I were to design a new Native American character, is there an item that is not at all controversial in this expression that would convey at a glance Native American? I need as much information as possible on this. Something that was interesting for Tekken 7, you guys may be familiar with the story. For the characters, so with Tekken 7, they did a lot of experimentation. Lucky Chloe was an experiment, according to Harada, as well as Gigas, Josie, and even Katarina. These were characters that Tekken doesn't normally do, and they wanted to try something different. All 4 of these characters, more or less, were controversial. Josie, she was so interesting because there was this big uproar. It really wasn't even big. It was just like someone says something bad, someone puts out a news article, and then that news article is used by people to say like, hey, look, one person is upset and wrote a news article. Everyone's upset. But in reality, Josie was a character who was very beloved to not only Tekken fans, but Tekken fans specifically in the Philippines. But there was just a few people who did not like the character because they felt the character was too Filipino, and then at the same time, not Filipino enough. But ever since then, ever since the controversy, the experimentation, the developers have been so on point with providing brand new characters. You talk about Victor being from Paris, Azuzina being from Peru, Leroy, Fakaram, and Lydia. All of these characters are from different regions of the world and very well represent the regions they come from. None of these characters were ever criticized for being stereotypical or anything like that. So they kind of learned from the mistakes of the past, and this is something that I think they're just really good at in general. But it is interesting to see Harada asking this question regardless. Where will this go? only time will tell. These two characters, you know, they've been in Tekken since the start if you look at them as a combination. A lot of people feel like you do need a Chang in Tekken for it to be Tekken, and you know, so on and so forth. Other characters can fill the blank. But that's it. I just want to talk about this. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.